Hey, welcome to the first episode of Crush Cravings with Confidence. My name is Lisa Callahan, and I want to make sure that I give you a little background about why I created this channel so that way you know if you're in the right place. So, because you're here, you're probably struggling with cravings, possibly emotional eating, possibly weight gain, and perhaps like not being able to lose weight or not being able to lose weight and keep it off for good. So if you're struggling with any of those things, you are in the right place. But I do want to tell you a little bit about this channel because you might be thinking that we're going to talk about food or nutrition or dieting or journaling or food groups or I don't know, how to take a pause or think about your feelings before you eat. And we're not going to talk about any of those things at all. In fact, if anything, I want to teach you how to unlearn all of that misinformation because if you're anything like me, when I was struggling with emotional eating and I'm recovered now for about 10 years, I used to think that dieting and meal prep and planning and all that stuff was like the only thing I could do because I felt like I couldn't trust myself around food. So I convinced myself that I had to stay on these like crazy diet plans, which basically kept the problem going forever and ever and ever. So I want to teach you in this first episode why you are going to want to get curious about how this problem started to begin with. And you might have an inkling of information. Like you might be like, oh, well, I know what happened. My family is Italian and food was love. And that's how I got used to this and all that stuff. But that's honestly your old story. I want to teach you how to create a new version of the truth and a new story. So that way you can actually meet your future self who does not have food thing anymore. So I know that this might seem right now a little bit like woo woo, like, all right, Lisa, how is that a thing? Right? Like I struggle with emotional eating. I can't be trusted about food. I know myself so well. Every single day I tell myself today's going to be a good day. And then it doesn't turn out that way. Something turns my day sideways. I end up so stressed. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I can't do this. And it's just like food is the only thing that comforts me. If that is you, my friend, I hear you. What I want to teach you though is that none of those things are actually true. They're not things that you can't actually change because those are responses to yourself that you're just used to having. And if you don't know any better yet, you won't be able to do any better. So please, if anything that I'm saying right now, like has like the slightest bit of like, little bit of curiosity, I really want you to stick around because what you're ending up doing when you're like relearning nutrition over and over and over again is you're giving yourself permission to remind yourself that you can't be trusted. And then you're relying on things outside of yourself to tell yourself that you're not trustworthy and that you have to listen or follow this specific diet plan to get all of your good information and all of your good feelings about yourself. But none of that is true. You can be trusted. You are not a sugar addict. You are not weak. Food does not have control over you. You are not lazy. And you definitely know how to be able to embrace a new way of thinking because let's face it, your way might not be working. So if you just think about it from this wider lens of like, hey, my way is not working. I'm trying to do this for decades. If you knew how to fix this, you'd have done it already. So maybe just sit back for a minute and listen to what I have to say. So that way, perhaps you can embrace a new way of thinking. And that way you'll be able to turn that into a new way of being. All right. So just a little background. I struggled with emotional eating for like 30 years. And what I did really was I woke up every day and said the same exact thing to myself. I was like, today is going to be a good day. Today I'm going to stick to my diet. And then what ended up happening was like somewhere around like 2 o'clock when I was coming home from work and like right before the kids came home from school, somehow or another, I would convince myself to like stop at maybe Whole Foods, like a store that, was supposedly nutritious. And I would tell myself, oh, I need lettuce. I need tomatoes. I need apples. Like I would tell myself that. I'd find myself turning into the store and thinking, come on, Lisa, you don't need anything. And then I was like, no, you really need something. And then I would go in there conveniently at the same time that they were like handing out all those little samples, sometimes they do that in stores. I'd be like, oh, look, cheesecake. Oh, look, pretzels. And I was, eating throughout my little shopping trip. I had my broccoli and my lettuce in my bag, but I would also like conveniently tell myself that I needed something from like the bulk food section. I'd be like, oh, I need almonds. And then as I was like pulling down on the lever to get the almonds or whatever, I would also conveniently put pulling down on the chocolate covered almond. And I'd shove like 10 of them into my mouth, like right there. Like honestly, like stealing food. And throughout that trip through the store, I had eaten, thing after thing, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Typically, I would also convince myself that like the kids needed cookies. And you know what? In all fairness, they probably did because I was eating the cookies every day. So, like, let's say I made them lunch. I'd take 2 cookies, give it to them, 4 would go in my mouth. 2 cookies for them, 4 would go in my mouth. Before I was done, like, I did need more cookies because I typically eat a box of cookies every single day. I felt like there was nothing else I could do because I was so exhausted. And I felt like that was the only thing that would like work me up and make me feel better. But then on the flip side of that, I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just get your, stuff together? And then I'd end up feeling guilty, which actually I discovered was the point. I wasn't craving chocolate. I wasn't craving cookies. I was craving guilt. And so it was kind of an interesting discovery that I made. And until I knew that I was craving guilt, I mean, none of it made sense. I never recognized how many of my thoughts were actually the very same thoughts that were making me feel horrible about myself and weak. How many of my thoughts were the same thoughts that were actually telling me that I couldn't be trusted? How many times I was like setting my expectations of myself way too high? Like, I'm never going to eat bread again. That's ridiculous. So I was setting myself up for failure because I was setting my expectations of myself way too high. And then I felt guilty all the time. I felt guilty when I couldn't stick to my diet. I felt guilty when my house felt disorganized. I felt guilty when I'd forget something and then I'd have to like run back in the house. Let's say I was, I don't know, getting in my car and think about this for yourself. Going out to the car, oh, forgot something, run back in. Go out to the car, forgot something, run back in. Go out to the car, forget something, run back in. So all day long, I was just like telling myself how stupid I was, how unorganized I was, how, I don't know, exhausted I was, how I couldn't get my, what together. And so I'd even pull this into conversations, like somehow or another, like I'd have a conversation with somebody and then I'd ruminate about it for hours thinking, could I have said this? Should I have said that? Oh, darn it. I didn't get my point across. It's like, what if they think something different than I meant? And like, are they mad at me? Like, I would really take things and I would like shift them into this like out of control thought in my head. And that made me feel very stressed, which again made me want to eat. So this was like a vicious cycle. And there literally didn't seem like there's any way out of this whole, pattern. And so what I started to recognize was that I was actually craving this guilt, but it was coming from an unhealed part of myself. And what I did through fixing this problem with guilt was I was able to take what's called a journey of self discovery. And self discovery was able to help me to be able to see like a bigger picture. So once I learned that I was thinking things that were actually creating a very comfortable place for me to land in Guiltville, what I ended up doing was I ended up taking about 6 years kind of figuring out my own story because I realized that there was parts of my mind that were telling myself things that were absolutely false. They were fear-based. They were mean to me. They were causing me to self-sabotage. They were causing me to feel guilty, disconnected, disorganized. And then because I felt so much in lack with myself, I had an abundance of like self-confidence issues. I felt like I wasn't worthy. I felt like I had disappointed myself. I felt like I couldn't pull my, what together. And so as I decided to embrace a new way of thinking, I was able to open up new space in my head, and I was able to catch myself in the act of telling myself things that were leading me right in that loop, continuing to have like decades and decades of struggle. And then because I was telling myself that it was about food, I was constantly looking for the next new diet. Because I was doing that, I was keeping myself completely blindsided. I was like, look over here, look at this new diet, look at this meal plan. And I was so busy doing all of that stuff that my craving for guilt actually grew. So I was actually with the dieting, I was actually strengthening my weaknesses. So in every episode of this channel here, what we're going to do is we're going to help you to take a journey within so that you can discover your highest self. Because if you can see that in that space, when I felt weak and unmotivated and I was telling myself false things and I was living in fear and I felt like I was kind of under the water and I was also ruminating about things that happened in the past, it was like I felt like I was under the water and I had one of those little yellow sippy straws and I was just like sipping little sips of air, but I really was running out of oxygen. And so what I had to do was I had to open my mindset to a new level of awareness so that I could discover my higher self and I could discover my truth. And then I was able to fix my problems that I thought were with food, but they really weren't. They were actually with me. And once I discovered a new way of thinking about me, I was able to gain confidence in myself. And then honestly, the food thing just, it really just disappeared, which is amazing. So I want to be able to teach you all of this too. And in every episode of these trainings here, we're going to be combining some things. So there'll be some new episodes. There'll be episodes that are going to be from my Facebook community, which are older episodes, but we're going to repurpose them here on this channel. They're absolutely amazing. You'll get something really great. You'll get so many nuggets of information out of every episode. So I really want to inspire you to click the like button, click the subscribe button, look in the notes pages on the channels. There's some offers if you wanted to get started on a little program called the Mindset Makeover. You're welcome to get started on that. It's a really great way to take a little bite out of self discovery, what that's all about. And there'll also be something somewhere in here to grab a free gift called the 10 simple mindset hacks that I use to stop eating every emotion. That's really what I felt like I was doing. All right. So if this is for you and you feel aligned and connected with this, stick around for a little while. Just, at least listen to a couple of episodes so that you can really get a gist of what it is that we're doing around here and what I'm going to teach you how to unlearn. Again, my name is Lisa Callahan. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to episode 1. Stick around and we'll see you in the next episode. All right. Bye for now.